This is day 596 of Arukh HaShulchan. If the sponsor come and share more of Arukh HaShulchan, please contact me directly. Be greatly appreciated. Today we're doing Siman Shin Nun. See if Aleph 2 Zayin. I guess. That's the whole Siman. Yep. Homer Rishus and Moti Rishus Acher. You're standing one Rishus and you're reading Moti in another Rishus. Of course, Bible Siman Shin Mem Zayin. It's Hebrew Zayin. The other show them Abshul Rishus Acher. If you extend your hand, is another Rishus. Nidas Kifio Rishus Yapshut Jam is considered in the Rishus to which it's extended. Flomini the other side Gufa Greer. Don't say the hand is status determined by the body. Those Nidas Rishus Gufa and the Jam to be judged like the Rishus in which the body is standing. Therefore, therefore, a person can stand with Rishus and carry Rishus Yachid, and they should do Yad by extending his hand. Kama Shiyotze. He's the stand with Rishus Rabbi, extends his hand to Rishus Yachid, carries. Or I'll make Rishus Yachid, or vice versa. If he stands with Rishus Yachid, Tal Rishus Rabbi, and carries Rishus Rabbi, Shenother Mokum Zeh, Meneer Mokum Zeh, take one place, not from another place. So, Bachelor over here, Arba Amos, but not 4 Amos. The Rabbi Amos Chayiv, you were for Amos, obviously Chayiv, because you're carrying Rishus Rabbi, even though you're standing with Rishus Yachid. Rambam Be'er Reish Beik Tevos Tazvav Kasu. Imotzi Potter. If you took it out from where it was, you're exempt. Nation Rishus Acheres, because it's in another Rishus. Ayin Sham. This is astonishing. What's him if he's another Rishus? His hand is like the Rishus, which it is, to which it's extended. Because he passes over himself. There's still chayav, even though it passes more than for him in the air. It's still chayav because like the Levium in the Mishkan. The Dami Shas links them, or shows parallel. Farisigo arrived. Arrived already argues. From Magamish Kosim Shatosu. Yishan writes a mistake in Rambam. Kosim makes us Svaram, Shagir so Chayav. And some Svarim, the Rambam's version is your Chayav, Ayin Shom. Or Shulchan has, if he's a Tzorich Lomar, going to say, Avu Bishir Rishus Acheres, even though it's in another Rishus, your Chayav. Base. Hadin HaKodem, this previous halacha. Mishnah Be'ervin, V'ochin Yisham. We also learned in there, Lo Yamod Adam, Rishus HaYachid, person not stand Rishus HaYachid, B'yishtem Rishus Rabbi, and drink Rishus Rabbi. And vice versa, Rishus Rabbi, B'yishtem Rishus HaYachid. And can B'chichnis Roisha V'ruba L'makum Shu Shais, unless you put the head and most of your torso in the place you're drinking. Mucha B'Gemara, it's given at that time, which is going to be clear and slow. The issue is that we decree, we're afraid they might come bring the vessel to himself, so Rishus where he's standing. Rishus is going to take from one domain to another domain. That's the case. Why, in the previous case, why didn't make it say why allow you to extend the hand, the other Rishus, and carry back and forth in that Rishus? Unlike with the case of his drinking, he required to put his head, most of his torso on inside. Tired to Shas explained the things which he needs, like beverages, water, other beverages, they're afraid they might bring it into where he's standing. As opposed to generic objects, as in the previous halacha, lo gazru. That's going from Rishus Yachid to Rishus Rabbi, vice versa. From one of them to a Carmelist, or Carmelist from a Carmelist into them. Mutu Amod Khan, you stand here, Lishtos B'Shus Sheni, and drink in the second Rishus. Again, it's only a Carmelist, it's only Drabbana, and only Chashash is Drabbana. Avish Lechnis Rabaguf, even though you don't put more of your bottom, most of your torso there. By Karmas, someone concerned, they might bring the water to yourself. Even bring him to the Karmas, like you said, the Raisa. It's no operation. Look, make a on top of another Xera. But your head, you have to put in place you're drinking. Okay, if not, then you're going to take the water, which is Yachid, put in your mouth, which is Shus Rabim, and you didn't have Nachal Shus Rabim. Tal Lehedim, which is Rabim, or vice versa. Tal Lehedim, which is Rabim, Karmelis, which is Yod, Karmelis, or Lehefech. So that's also, even in, you must have, even in the case where it's a Karmelis involved, your head at least, in the other issues. By object which requires, we're not just concerned by beverages. It's just beverages. We're not be concerned they might bring them to where you are. El Maya became loin. Let's talk about very distinguished vessels, very beautiful vessels. You're also drinking them. But Zach goes with Shem Yavim Etzlam, and that made the cream. Maybe you're going to bring him into where you're standing. But if it's beautiful vessels, but you're not drinking out of them, became Shem Noim, or drinking out of vessels which are not beautiful. Lo Chashuv Lo Gozu. Now concerning they make a Xera. The Daibotzos, Roshel, Vablo, Robo, and therefore it's enough for him to put out his head, as in previous sif, and he doesn't need the majority of torso. And it's just Bekelim Noim, unless he's drinking in those beautiful vessels. Zeldas Ramasham Shukos of Ahmed Varmum Shir Shois Bekelim Noim. So Ben Ram writes, what are we talking about? When he's drinking out of beautiful vessels. The bracket says, Tamon Nired, Dilokin Havalama Shasir Shani. That was not the case. It should have said drinking is different. Because Rakim Noim, Lamalo Tsai Bishasir. And conversely, we say about just Kalim Noim, why does it have to mention drinking? Avadi Tartabin, need both. But there we show Das Rashi, Fatur. First opinion, which does take Kalim Noim into account, is Rashi too. The Ram Yeshua the Holy Kumar. That would say, what's it saying? Things that she needs, water or anything else, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to remove from one rishus to another rishus. You have to have. You can't carry it in another rishus because you might come to draw it back to you. Okay. Dav, here's the Shayla. There's a good question. What's the analogy between the first halacha of carrying something the other rishus and drinking? Paladina Shani, in the second halacha, it's got to put a head in most of his torso places drinking. Because the beverages enter his innards. If its innards are on the same rishus where the water is there, uprooting the water which is yachid, and anacham put it down which is rabim, or hefer vice versa. The answer is if the beverage will go immediately smoothly to the innards, wouldn't have a difficulty. Now, mamashkim hareim couldn't be piv. But first, the beverages are in his mouth. From his mouth, they go down to the innards. His mouth is a makom tur. It's not 4x4. So it's uprooting a maximum. If he didn't put Rosho Verubo in, even didn't put Rosho in, but it's still only going from the Shus Yachid to a Makom Tur in his mouth. Shus around Makom Tur in his mouth. So what's the issue? And then if you're standing with Shus Rabbim, okay, it's going from the Makom from the Shus Yachid into your mouth of Makom Tur, and then it's Shus Rabbim, which is your stomach. So what's the issue? Even though we know that Al-Khatiyah takes something from one rishus via Makom Tur to another rishus. That's where we're concerned. They might not put it down in the Makom Tur, just carry on. It's kind of stop in the middle of the mouth. We said on Shas Tama Isser who rak Shem Yavim Etzlo. So much the whole reason why it's prohibited is because you might bring them physically, the water, not by drinking, but physically into where you are. So that's the case. The question is very simple. Why is this different than the previous law where it says you're allowed to extend your hands to the shus and carry the whole day? Came in Akshaveh. You say, this is obvious that his mouth is not a mokum tour. He gave it significance. You're drinking with it. That only works when his mouth is the place where his entire body is. But here his mouth is the place he's drinking about. The body is in another rishus. His mouth is a mokum tour. In other words, it's not bottled to any of the karmas around him, even the karmas of his own stomach. As we shall explain. That was today's machshava makes the place like Havana means that thing is negated to the rishus in which it's standing. And it's like the rishus itself with a 4x4 dimension to it, even though it's very small. This is talking about something which doesn't have a permanent status, like people, and other animals, okay, more vessels, which are movable. Which is set in stone, so to speak, or it's permanently in one place. His thought cannot make that a place. Because it's not bottled to the shus around it because of its kfiyus. It remains a makom tour. They talk about the people who wove the curtains in the base of Mikdash. They tossed the shuttle in the curtain they were making. Tossing the shuttle between the chassis and air, between the warp and the weft threads, is makom tur. That's what are you talking about? His machshava that go through the weave is in itself machshiv the place. But the answer like this: came the avi davar shel since something which is permanent, lo mahani zekamosh kasavu. This does not work as we said. In other words, if it's permanent, it's bottled to rishus around it. Mokum to a place becomes whatever like is around it. Frieza Asi Shop works out very well with this. Steam Pivo made, but Mokum Shagul made. If his mouth is where the body's standing, say which is so yachted. Shopper meaning Machshavta Mashil Mokum. Then we say his Machshav can make it a place. But his mouth is in another domain from his body. It can't become nullified by the place which it's found. Because the body which is in another rishus, won't allow the body to be subordinate to the shus where the mouth is. So therefore it remains a makom tur. So since the body does not permit the negation, again, the body which is standing staunchly in one rishus does not allow the mouth to be considered separate from itself. So it's not separate from itself. It must be a makom tur by definition. Therefore, in terms of law, you're not supposed to spit. Yisbar going to learn the machshavta mashim makom. So in that case, can make a place. The nation people gufa amdim rishus echad. That's only when it's because his mouth and his body are in the same rishus. And even though we extend hands of the rishus, our first case this evening, it sound like 4x4, afshal gu b'rishus acher, even though the body is in the other rishus, but Hashem Siman Shimon Zayin, Yado Shani. No, his hand is different. It has its own chashiv, it says 4x4. The person's hand is like 4x4. It's not that there's machshava mixed in a place. It's because of the it's because the yad is nimshach after the guf. So it's not because of his machshava. Well, that's only the same rishus. His bracket says, "V'amagi Avram b'siv kon beis ikshel b'sev torach l'chalik shelchei b'tzeisi b'dod the kohen has to wear the object in his hand previously with var tmoim. That's astonishing. The mind and zelzeh does have to do with our case v'duk." Okay, and he says, "I intend serving chaf and rav azo call them the maskinon the other chashuva." It's before we come to the conclusion that it has significant. It's not going with the svara of his hand is significant. But if it came with made a dumb b'shus yachim, for instance, his stand b'shus yachim, tal b'shus rabbim, a carry b'shus rabbim, or vice versa. If you have a mutter amar b'shus rabbim, if you can stand b'shus rabbim, lo should yachim b'shus yachim, extend your hands into b'shus yachim. V'ulito b'aftech l'pasuach ha'putar besa, and take a key to open the door. V'lechashid shem mevi ha'matzleach, so we're not afraid he's going to read the maftech where his body is, which is outside the area of the Mokum Tur. So when you want to lock your door, go out to the public domain, and lock it with the key as base of his house, and leave the key somewhere to Shus Yachid. I'm not concerned, it might come to take it with him. Brackets, if you rock the Carmelis, we not allowed this bar of Carmelis. Zelin of Yetzla Mafter Kamuvur. That's the difference being the key. It's only mutter in the Carmelis. Avachavi Raklin Ovliftach Laniach Sham Umafteach. Yeah, but the Carmelists were afraid it's going to take the key back and forth from Rishus to Rishus. But here, since the key is not transportable, it's just going to stay here. So therefore, we're not concerned that you're going to take it from Rishus to Rishus. Zayin lo yamar Rishus Yachid, Rishus Yachid Rishus Rabim, because it's not stand in a Rishus Yachid and urinate the Rishus Rabim. Rishus Rabim Yashim Rishus Yachid, and vice versa. V'chein lo Arukh HaShulchan spit. If he did spit or urinate, and it goes into the other rishus, you're chayav. Ba'avagav the makom hashes and eno makom arba, even though the place where urine comes out is not 4x4. Chen pivi not makom arba. It's not 4x4. Ach machshavtei mashvei lei mokem. His thought makes it into a place. Okay, when the people makom hashesed, since his mouth and the place from which the urine comes out, only makom shaguf omed, they're standing where the body's standing. We say his mashava makes it into a makom. What's happening? Carmelist, it shouldn't even stand at Carmelist and urinate or just rabbim or just rabbim. Or man mekamas from them to Carmel. Shari metalta mekamas shus yachid, because by urinating you're carrying from the Carmel shus yachid shus rabim shus yachid olehefach either shus yachid shus rabim vice versa. Afilu im motzi piv amasol achutz. If you extended your mouth or your organ outside, us you're not allowed to urinate or spit. Shari nekar bigufo home shus yachid, because even though the extension which is coming out is in the other rishus, it's uprooted from his body, which is in the original rishus. For low down it's not like drinking. The b'sham munach b'piv b'koydem gets rest in his mouth. Then goes into the innards. But The urine does not stand still in the organ at all. Immediately gushes forth. So too with saliva. But that you're not chayav chatos in that case. It's not resolved in the Eruvin. So do some walking shusarabim. V'nesak robin piv and saliva gathers in his mouth. Yeshu and some say shloilech arba amos sheyirok. Some say shouldn't walk for amos until he spits. Came with tzarich lashlich harok since he has to spit. There's nechshav kemasui. It's like he's carrying. V'zel dasatur. Ava Rama perish mishasham bazar. Then looking that's not the halacha. I'm Trump. Chen kosava Rav Sham that's not the halacha. V'nir me'ashas sham de bekicho v'nir vade osir. But if it's phlegm or something of that sort, then already it's going to be too separate from the body. Shenitlu shum rachim b'fiv, and they when they're in your mouth, because they're definitely considered separate. It says in brackets, it's not a complete proof. Awesome. I call leave Rabbi the so called Rabbi the vein pasku look Rabbi the name pas Rabbi. Vagam the kicho v'niyah lows Mishnah, even though the mucus is not mentioned in Mishnah. Come let us me. Aim the gam said Lord Allah who says Rabbi even in this case. Come Yishlach me. Never Shmiach came out to a pasuk Rabbi the gam barok. That you can't do it, can't spit from one rishus to another rishus, and even if the head is in the other rishus. Shulchan Avudei Azun, his brother Shulchan Vade Yeshli Zohar, but they have to be very careful. Achatzleinu Dein Rishus Harabim Ulaya Kol Moedim. But there's never Rishus Harabim. Maybe everybody agrees, then the Carmel is allowed to do it. So make it Zera. The Allah is not sure what the Allah is the Carmel is, and he wants to be Mako. Nevertheless, it says you shouldn't be Mako. Unless it's something which everybody agrees is a karmelis, such as a valley or one of the outer fields. Have a low but not you shall be mako in our shusarabim, even though it's a karmelis. Right. So our shusarabim says could be a shusarabim, so therefore he says not to be lenient.